balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 71, Just Lori, Part 5 of the Pumping and Returning to Work series. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Jill Eisenstadt, IBCLC. Today's show is going to be a fun one. I hope that you have enjoyed listening to the Going Back to Work series. There have been 4 parts so far, and they have been chock full of great information for you. I am going to review some of the information that has received the most popular feedback with All About Breastfeeding listeners, what they were saying was most helpful, and then I'm going to answer some of the questions that I have received through Facebook texts and messaging. Doing a podcast is very interesting and very different than when I'm teaching a breastfeeding class or working one-on-one with the mom. I get asked questions and I'm able to answer them right away. Once I answer your question, it's easy for you to follow that up with another question. This is how the learning happens when I work with you that closely. I also can gauge where the greatest interest lies and what, if anything, might be the most confusing, and I'm able to respond to that right away. Well, when doing a podcast, I'm by myself in a room, talking into a microphone, and sometimes looking at my notes on a computer screen. It is amazing how much of a difference this makes, as I am missing a very important element, a very important piece to what motivates me and helps me to know where to go next. This is one of the main reasons that getting feedback from listeners is so important, because otherwise someone is in the room with me. But now I'm like, I think I'm on the right track. I think this is what they want to know and know more of. I think my listeners are listening, what I'm describing and suggesting. I think these are the follow-up questions that they would have. I think, but I don't really know until I get that feedback from you, which is why I am so grateful and appreciative for every question I get asked, for every email that I have received, and for every Facebook message. I know that you know what this is like. Just think like when you're doing your own job and you're just going about your business and you just don't know if you're doing things correctly. You're waiting for feedback, right? You have all eyes staring at you, but until someone opens up their mouth or you get an evaluation and someone lets you know that you're on the right track, well, there's always just a little bit of self-doubt regarding knowing you're on the right track. So, thank you, everyone, for letting me know that I am on the right track and for letting me know that you are taking action and incorporating some of the ideas that I have given you. This is what is so fascinating and fabulous for me and motivating. I do this all to make your life as a breastfeeding mother just a little easier, a little less complicated, and hopefully a lot more convenient. The feedback I have received has been great. I'm going to take each episode and share some of the most popular pieces of information that listeners have said have been most helpful. Let's start with part 1, which was episode number 62, and I titled it, Preparing to Go Back to Work. Sometimes we just get so used to the way things have been done that we just don't think of other ways of doing things. Listeners really liked my suggestion to speak to your employer about coming back to work and what else you might be able to do. If you're a little nervous, you're a little anxious, your baby isn't breastfeeding really well, you still have some things to work out with that, figure out pumping, collect a little bit more milk, or just physically, the insurance tells you you're ready to come back, your job tells you you're ready to come back, but Maybe physically and emotionally, you're just not ready to come back full time. Well, you can be creative. So, one of the things that you can ask your employer and think about, is it possible for you to return to work in the middle of the week or the end of the week? So, here's what it would look like. You would return to your first week back on a Wednesday, and you would work Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you'd have 2 whole days off before returning back to work Monday through Friday. You could also just return Thursday and have Thursday or Friday, or just return Friday, have the weekend off, kind of regroup, figure out how things went with dropping your baby off at daycare and getting everything ready for going back to work, and work out some of those kinks. Sometimes what people have done is they literally have spent the first month back just working Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then having the rest of Saturday and Sunday and Monday and Tuesday off. You can have this routine for a few weeks. This can really help the return to work be gentler on your body, mind, and heart. So when you work just for a day or two and then you have a couple of days off, this helps you to recover from this huge transition. This makes what I call re-entry so much easier for mom and baby. So here's a huge take-home message. I have given this tip to moms, and I hear back from enough moms who thank me for pushing them to think outside the box and just ask. Some moms have been able to go back Monday through Friday, but maybe just 8 to 12. Or they come in a little earlier and they work through a lunch and their day is about 2 hours short. But they get home several hours earlier, and it just makes a difference between staying home with your baby and going back to work full time. Enough moms have been pleasantly surprised by their employer's response. Maybe they didn't get all the things they were asking for or in the exact way that they would like, but many moms were able to be creative with their thinking with their bosses in ways that certainly made the difference in the transition of going back to work easier. So, like a lot of things with motherhood, I'm going to ask you, think outside the box. In part 2, which is episode number 64, tips and tricks to make pumping as easy and convenient as possible, I explained the difference between hospital-grade pumps and personal use pumps and the reasons one might choose one over the other. When you are new to the breastfeeding world and pumping world, thinking about which kind of pump you should use and seeing all the ones online and in the shelves is very overwhelming about where you even start. Listeners have told me how helpful this was for them. Everyone loves my favorite tip, which is to purchase a small manual pump. They cost maybe $30 or $40, and you keep this manual pump in your personal bag, your pocketbook. You put one in the back of the car, or you take one to the office with you. I have been suggesting this for years, and invariably I hear from several moms a year who email me to thank me for this lifesaver of a tip, as they did get caught without the use of their electric pump. Maybe they forgot it at home, forgot it at the office. Maybe it broke. Maybe the batteries weren't working. There are various reasons why. You will do really well to just buy a manual pump and have it with you. It saves the day. I imagine there's a whole lot more moms who are really helped by this tip, and I don't even hear back from them. On this same topic, I suggest to moms, and when I'm visiting with a mom, I usually try and show her hand expression, because guess what? You may not have an electric pump, you may not have a manual pump, but you always have your hands, and if you are used to hand expression, it comes in very handy, pun intended. It can really help you out of a really tough spot when you might be really, really full and there's nothing to get the milk out. Hand expression works really great. Oh, and one last item I always get great feedback on. Suggestion to moms to use a hands-free bra. When you are new to all this pumping thing, many moms think the whole hands-free thing is weird until you're doing it on a regular basis. In part 3, Episode number 66 I titled Babies, Bottles, and Daycare. Oh, this was such another great show with lots of great feedback from listeners. Parents spend so much money on finding that perfect bottle, the perfect nipple. You loved one of my first tips from this show. There is no one best nipple or bottle for all breastfed babies. I gave you some detailed information on how to go about beginning to choose which nipple might be the best for your baby. I gave you one of the most important tips and little known secrets in this area. And the tip? That is, it is more about upright and paced feeding than it is about the perfect nipple. I have a great video in the show notes which will explain upright and paced feeding in greater detail. I also have pictures of the various nipple types in the show notes. So all of that info was from part 3, episode number 66. All the info is available, and you just go back and you listen to the show. You go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcast and you check out the show notes, and you can get all the handouts and all the checklists I have going along with each show. Now in part 4, which is episode number 68, I titled it Tips and Tricks to Help You Navigate Pumping in the Workplace. What you, the listeners, told me is that your favorite topic I spoke about in this episode is the notion that you can take some action. You can do some things before your baby's born to help prepare you for returning to work. Understandably, if you've never been breastfeeding or pumping mom, you have no idea that there are things you can do ahead of time to set making returning to work easier. The advice that was the most popular, that was encouraging you to meet up with breastfeeding and pumping moms like now. Seek out new mothers who you know who are pumping. There are probably mothers at your job who can answer a lot of questions about pumping in your specific workplace. If you have any concerns, they can probably help to alleviate some concerns or anxiety, and they can just tell you how they have worked around some difficult situations. Ask them the tricks of the trade to pumping in your office space. Ask them if they're a rep who travels around. How do they do it? Where do they go to pump? What are their breastfeeding and breast pumping hacks? What have they learned from the School of Hard Knocks? And believe me, they love to share. Also, another great tip, meeting women in your own community. This has been invaluable advice for moms. Typically, we just think, well, we don't have our baby yet. We're not a part of that mommy crowd. Well, I know from being around from breastfeeding moms for many, many years, they love nothing better than taking a pregnant mom under their wings and showing you the ropes. Most are not pushy and just really want to help guide you, and most can't wait to answer your questions. I have found that moms have done fabulous taking this advice on. They get to meet and chat and know other moms before they've had their baby, and it really helps with socialization after they've had their baby, and phone numbers or emails of people to connect to after you've had your baby. So hands down, this is the most popular advice. And you could look in your own office space for other moms who have had babies and are back to work. You can go to free La Leche League meetings, which are typically held in places in your community, perhaps a local library or volunteers' homes. You can attend a breastfeeding mothers group at your local hospital or birthing center. Now again, taking a breastfeeding class is great, but showing up at one of the groups would be really, really nice for you as you get to meet other mothers who are actually doing the breastfeeding thing. If you're planning a home birth, ask your midwife for local breastfeeding moms groups that she knows of. That is a good wrap-up of the feedback that I received about the most popular topics in the 4 out of 5 part series. The beauty of podcasts are that they're free and available the years after I release them. So you can easily go back and listen and read the show notes that go along with the recorded shows. In the show notes, I have referenced links where you can go to download some handy checklists and handouts that support the information in the show. It's really chock full of great information. If you liked the shows and felt they were valuable to you, don't keep it to yourself. Share the links with your friends with pregnant moms and moms who are pumping. You can go to iTunes and subscribe to this show, and you can also leave a review. In the world of online podcasting and iTunes, we have to sometimes do a shameless plug to help motivate you to subscribe to the show and leave a review. These are two of the biggest ways that can expose more people to this show. So go ahead and do so, and I thank you very much for doing that. This covers part 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now on to part 5 of this series. What I have done is taken notes of some of the most common questions I get asked on the topic of pumping and returning to work, and I am going to answer them now. One of the most common questions I have once mothers return to work is, well, I have to say, I get asked it a lot, but more frequently what actually happens, I get what I call these crisis emails or crisis phone calls with moms with their anxiety really high. And what they're saying is, I'm making enough milk and my baby seems happy and content with me when I'm breastfeeding, but my daycare keeps telling me that I'm not leaving them with enough milk for my baby. They're saying that my baby's hungry and wants more. And I'm freaking out because I can't pump that much more than I already give them. What should I do? I definitely don't want to supplement. So here is my answer. Based on years of experience as a lactation consultant, working with moms and getting feedback and speaking with staff of daycare. I take all of that information into consideration when I answer this question. The very first thing you want to do is figure out if your baby truly is not getting full feedings and is unhappy at daycare. I think that it's a fairly good assumption if you were to give your baby a bottle or your significant other or family member over the weekend or on your days home, have them give it to your baby 2 or 3 or 4 times and see if your baby is taking that much more milk than you are giving in a bottle. To me, it's a fairly good assumption if you notice that when your baby gets a bottle outside of daycare and seems fairly happy, that the same volume of milk should be good for your baby when they're in daycare. If your baby is satisfied when you breastfeed him and is happy and content for several hours in between, his weight gain is normal and his output is normal, to me, this is logically speaking another sign that you're making enough and he's happy with less than what daycare is telling you. Here is what commonly happens, is that babies, and not only in daycare, like a daycare facility, but even when you have someone and a family member watching your baby, if they don't understand breastfed babies and how they get their milk at the breast and how bottles work, they can frequently feed babies too much milk. So what commonly happens is that they're giving the milk in the bottle. Maybe they're not sitting your baby up right. Maybe they're not giving your baby enough breaks in between the taking the bottle. Maybe they're feeding your baby too frequently. So lots of times what happens is moms, we just get used to our babies and we really get used to and key into their feeding cues. And sometimes when our baby's being watched by someone else, when they just begin to make just a little bit of noise and show just a little bit of wanting attention, that is mixed up for a feeding cue. So what you really want to do is review upright and paced feeding. I have a video in the show notes, and I talk about this in the series also. Find out how they are holding your baby when feeding and about how long it takes your baby to drink from the bottle when your baby is not with you. So this may help kind of give a bird's eye view of what's going on as far as feedings. Another tip is, if you're not already doing so, you might try using a newborn or preemie nipple, so this can help to slow down the flow. The other thing you want to do is find out how frequently they are giving the bottle. Again, sometimes daycare may be missing your baby's cues, and maybe what your baby needs is personalized attention rather than more food. I find that when parents delve into these two areas, they find significant changes that can be made. Once babies' feedings are slowed down and they're not offered the milk so frequently, less milk is being used and your baby is still happy. Another tip: if you're being told that your baby needs more milk, one of the things you can do is bring in more bottles with less milk in them and see if feeding your baby the same amount of milk in smaller quantities more frequently can help. So, this is how that would look. Rather than give 3 bottles that have 4 ounces of milk each for a total of 12 ounces, give 4 bottles of 3 ounces each and see if less milk more frequently does the trick. So basically, your baby would be getting the same amount of milk, but in less quantity each time. If you are still struggling, one tip could be for you to request for them to hold your baby off for that last feeding of the day until you get there, and then you can directly breastfeed your baby. Now, I am definitely not advocating for someone to be holding a crying, screaming baby who's clearly really hungry. But if you're going to be back in about a half hour and your baby is just a little fussy and with some personalized attention, singing, rocking, playing with a toy or something, I think it's worth it to see if your baby can be distracted. This can eliminate 1 bottle and a great way for you to reconnect when you pick your baby up from daycare. If you're still struggling, another tip might be to actually get more milk. So maybe taking some herbs and getting in the pumping each day can help you get more milk to give them. You might consider pumping perhaps late at night, right after your baby's last feeding, and right before you lay down to go to sleep yourself. The not so popular answer is, if none of this can be figured out and you intuitively feel your baby is getting enough milk and it is creating a lot of stress for you, it may be time for you to look at a different daycare. Okay, another question that I get asked a lot: pumping is making my nipples sore all the time. The first thing I want you to do is confirm that it's not your baby causing any nipple pain or soreness. Once you have ruled that out, think about whatever creams or lotions you are using on your nipples. Could you be allergic to any of these products, and are they causing you any pain? Could you be reacting to the material of your bra or any nursing pads that you are using? I have seen this happen often enough for me to warrant telling you this is the first thing that you should check out. What's going against your nipples? Once you have ruled these out as being any issue and you're sure it's the pump, here are my thoughts. First things first. You always want the pump you're using to be yours and to be brand new. You never want to share pumps with another mom. You never, never, never want to purchase a pump online or anywhere else. You have no idea how it's been used, the cleanliness of the pump, the wear and tear on the pump and the motor. So you want to make sure it's your own pump. And you always want to make sure that it's pretty new. If you've used it for another baby, maybe just a few short months, if you've used your pump for a year and you've been working a regular full-time job of pumping more than 5 or 6 times a year, it may be that the pump is not as effective as it could be when it's brand new. And then nothing that you do is going to change if it's not as effective as it used to be. Next thing to check out: all pumps are not created equal, and not all moms respond to the pumps the same as the next mom. So if you have 2 girlfriends who swear by one pump and it's killing you, I just need for you to tell yourself, well, it's working great for them, but maybe it's not for me. Just like any other item that you might purchase, other people do great with it. They love it. They stand by the product, but you try it and you're like, I don't understand what the whole big thing is. It's not working well for me. So let's start with what might be the most common and easiest ways to solve your problem of sore nipples while pumping. The first thing that you need to do is ask and observe what other moms are using. If your pump is one of the highest rated and you know of quite a few moms who are using it and they're all comfortable with it, then let's just say for the moment, it's safe to say this is a good quality pump. The first thing you want to do is check the instructions. Make sure that you're using all the parts properly and you're putting it together properly, and that you're using the pump and the settings properly. You can usually check this out on a YouTube, as most of the popular brands have instructional videos either on YouTube or go to their website. So you just want to rule out any issues with the pump, the parts, putting it together, and using the settings properly. The next thing you want to do is check the flange sizes. This can be very confusing for moms. You're like, I don't know, it looks like it's okay, but it's hurting me. The wrong size flanges and using the pump incorrectly are the two most common reasons for sore nipples. I'm attaching a great video to these show notes that will help you learn how to tell if your flange size is correct for you. And in the end, if you're still not sure, I always tell moms this: with all the money that you spent on everything during your pregnancy and baby and pumps, etc., it is so worth it to just get flanges a size above and a size below what you're using and just test them out if you really cannot figure it out. But a video to help you figure this out will be in the show notes. When I say that moms use the pump incorrectly, here are some of the ways they can be using it incorrectly. There are settings for the suction and for the speed. You need to go over your pump instructions and learn exactly how to set those settings as the pumping session goes along. Some moms are using the pump incorrectly, and one of the things they're doing is keeping it on for way too long. Typically, in most good pumps, 15 to 20 minutes pumping both sides at the same time is a really good time frame. Pumping for too many more minutes is likely to cause nipple pain even with the best pump and the right size flanges. Turning the suction up too high can also create undue nipple pain, even when the pump is a good one and the flange size is correct. If none of what I talked about has made a difference, here are a few other things that you can try. If you're not using a hospital-grade pump, switching to one and see if this makes a difference. For some moms, ultimately, they were using the same flanges, the same tubing, the same everything, but they switched pumps, and voila, it made all the difference in the world. So it's definitely something that you might want to check out. In this series, I talked about the Perfect Latch, which is a nipple cushion that you place inside your flange. Your nipple moves along with this cushion, providing greater comfort when pumping. You can go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcast and check out number 70, and you will see in those show notes a discount code for you can order the Perfect Latch. It'll also be in today's show notes. On your days off, you might consider hand expressing your milk, if for nothing else to give yourself a break from the pump and learn how to hand express. Some mothers are actually quite surprised to realize their pain goes down a whole lot, and when they thought they would not have wanted to take the time to hand express, they realize they have more control, they're more comfortable, and they get more milk in the same time, or maybe a little longer, and some moms even less time than when they use the electric pump. So thinking about hand expression is something really wise for moms. If you are going to hand express, I interviewed a really wonderful mom, Mel, and you will want to check out the show notes today also from that episode where I talk about the breast bowl, which is a beautiful glass-blown wide mouth bowl that you hand express into so your milk doesn't go shooting out of the sides of the bottle that you're trying to hand express into, and it goes into this beautiful bowl and none of your milk gets wasted. So lots of tips about sore nipples. First, you're going to check everything that's going against your nipple. Then you're going to make sure you really are using a very good pump. You're going to make sure the flanges are a good fit. You're using it correctly. the settings are correctly. And you might also, if none of that helps, you might switch to a hospital grade pump. The perfect latch, this nipple cushion, may just be the game changer that you need, so you might want to check that out also. The last question I get asked very frequently is, when I'm back to work, how long should I pump each time? I don't have a lot of time for my breaks. The answer is, there really is no one answer that's correct for everybody. It's a very individual decision. It does help to have a starting place for you to think about this though. And here are a few tips to try and help you figure out how long you should pump for. Since a majority of moms fit into this category of what I'm going to suggest now, this is what I would say to start with. I would say that if you're using a good quality pump and you're pumping both sides at the same time, which you should be, that a majority of the milk you have available for that pumping session, if it's been a few hours, will be expressed in about 15 to 20 minutes. Keeping the pump on for much longer should not be necessary, and typically, even the most comfortable of pumps will really be irritating after much longer than 20 minutes. If you are hand expressing, it may take 15 minutes or so for each side. As you become more proficient at doing so, it may begin to take you a lot less time. Some moms, they're just fortunate and they have a high volume and a quick and multiple letdowns, and they can just get the job done faster. You will have to experiment, and soon you will find out what your average pumping session time will be. Okay, so that is all the questions for today's show. I'm going to release this show, and it will include all the links that I've referred to in this video. So again, this whole series, part 1 through 5, has been big, and it's filled with a lot of information, and again, lots of free checklists and handouts for you to look into. If you do want to get your hands on all this information from the shows I've referenced, again, all you need to do is go to iTunes and podcasts. Go to the search area and put in All About Breastfeeding. The podcast will come up, you subscribe to it, and you'll see a list of all the shows you've recorded so far. This particular series, part 1 through 5, starts with show number 62. If you want to get all the show notes and free handouts and checklists, it's also very easy to get. All you need to do is go to allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/podcasts. Each show will have their own show notes with their own separate handouts. And one last item, I encourage and welcome you to come to the All About Breastfeeding community Facebook page and join us. All you need to do is go to search on Facebook and punch in All About Breastfeeding Community. There we are talking about all things related to the show, guests, and authors that we've had on the show, and other mommy stuff related to breastfeeding. So I look forward to seeing you there. And for right now, that's a wrap. Bye-bye.